Hello guys and welcome back for another video. Today again we will go over information related to the guild wars in Where Winds Meet, and since we already took an extensive look at the mystic skills, now it's time to go over the inner ways which are ideal for this game mode. Of course it will highly depend on the build and the weapon combination when it comes to inner ways, but ideally we want to know what are the must-have cards for this PvP game mode. Another small but really important thing to mention here before the start is that this is just my opinion, so please have this in mind before telling me that I'm crazy and I don't know what I'm talking about. So let's go over the different inner ways and see what we have. Of course, there is three different types: the golden ones, which are considered to be the best, then we have the purple ones, and then at the very bottom we have those blue ones, which I personally never used. I don't think I will be ever using them, but I've seen some people, for example, that are using 5-fold bleed. Not sure if it's worth it, but you can definitely give it a try. As we know by now, all of the inner ways are segregated into different classes. So for example, you would see that this one is for umbrella and fan, while this one is for strategic sword, and so on, even for the purple ones. But let's start with the neutral ones, which are in this case the Moral Chant and the Seasonal Edge. Moral Chant is extremely good, especially on higher tiers, because of this direct critical rate and of course the high amounts of physical attack plus the stacking damage or healing depending on your build. So I would say that if you are looking for extra damage or looking for extra heals, this is probably a must-have, especially for the healers. This definitely has to be one of your inner ways in the arsenal. When it comes to 1v1 fights, of course, it's not optimal for all the builds, but again, here we are talking about 30v30, so ideally, if something improves your damage with a lot, then maybe you should give it a shot and see if it works well. In my own opinion, I think that tier 5 for the Moral Chant is really good, while tier 6 is a bit of a, let's say waste, because you would invest 200 of those golden ones just for maybe 5% increased damage, maybe even less. So I would definitely stop at tier 5, like I did also with my own build. As you can see, I have 0. And then I would just use the physical attack and the direct critical hit to an extent where I have enough. Then we go for Seasonal Edge. This one is extremely interesting one. In this video I would not go into every single detail of the inner ways, but I would just go over why they should be used or not used. So if you want to know more of them, I would suggest you to check them out or just ask me and I will try to explain it. But yeah, for this one I think that it could be ideal specifically for weapons which are swapping between one and the other quite often. For example, Nameless Sword and Nameless Spear or something similar, because this one would give you a lot of bonuses. Again, physical attack on the second, and then on the fifth one, it's again physical damage bonus in percentage this time. So you can see also those different buffs that you can acquire when you swap between your weapons. So I would say that it's a nice one. The question is, do you have the capacity to use it? Because of course you would want to run some other ones which are related to your build. So take this consideration in mind, have it in mind. I would probably slot it if I have the chance, but if I don't have the chance, I would not really prioritize. Then we have to go to the ones that are specific for the different builds. And since I'm an umbrella player, I would go for the Blossom Barrage. Now this one is extremely good. I mean, that's why it's a golden one. Is it really necessary to have? I would probably say yes. Do we really need the tier 6 for it? I would probably say no. And the reason for that is because 2 charges are pretty much enough to rotate in between different types of damage and to always have them. Of course, you can follow up on single targets, either that be people or some other objectives, and you can get the bonus damage, and you can repeat, of course, if you know the correct rotation. Having it on tier 5, as you can see here, you can get critical rate and critical damage bonus. And of course, going over to tier 6 would give you 1 extra charge, like I said, but it's not really mandatory. But in ideal world, if you play Umbrella, you definitely want to have this one. Then if we go to the others, which are in line below, The Nameless Sword, this one, it's just ridiculous, but this is probably one of the best inner ways and let's say the biggest damage amplifiers compared to all the others. Nameless Sword, specifically on tier 6, is just out of this world broken. This is technically the highest DPS into the Guild Wars. Of course, damage not always means win, but in general, if you know what you are doing and you have a couple of really good Nameless Swords, they can dish out millions of damage without any difficulties. So I would definitely say that if you play Nameless Sword, this is a must-have thing. Then we go to Sword Horizon. Now, of course, Strategic Sword is not so popular into Guild Wars, not because it's a bad weapon. Ideally, that's a really good 1v1 weapon. So if you're a half-time performer at the 20-minute mark on the 1v1 battle, probably it's gonna be really nice to play a Strategic Sword. But in general, Strategic Sword as a whole is not so much AoE orientated, and it's more of a, small skirmishes, even 1v1s. Ideally, if you play as a main hand Strategic Sword, maybe it's a good thing to have the Sword Horizon, but most of the people use the Strategic Sword only for the ultimate in the guild battlefield, like in the guild mode. So I would say that you probably want to skip this one, but like I said, if this is your main weapon and you mainly play with your Strategic Sword, then probably you can go for it. Then we go to the next one, which is Royal Remedy. This is the must-have thing for every healer, basically. It's an extremely good inner way. I mean, you cannot really miss on this one. It gives crazy bonuses, so it's just simple as it is. You just need to have it. That's basically how it works. And of course, for healers, I would also explain a little bit further with the other inner ways when we go to the purple ones, because some of them are not so good and not so suitable. But yeah, Royal Remedy, definitely one of them. So have that in mind if you play healer. Then we go to Exquisite Scenery. This is the one for the tanks. So ideally the tanks in guild battles, in guild wars, are tanks for a reason, and that reason is to suck, like we call it, sucking the people around them into a clump where the enemy can be bombed and potentially killing a couple of enemies, if not all of them at once, so you can gain advantage over your opponent. This specific inner way is giving a lot of damage for the tanks, which is not mandatory, or it's not needed so much in this whole 30v30 battle. Of course, if we speak about arenas or small skirmishes, then definitely this is one of the best inner ways for the tanks. But when it comes to survivability, this is not a mandatory one. However, I think that it's nice to have, because when you trigger all of those effects, which are of course increasing your damage, giving you critical damage, and so on and so on, and with the amount of usage on abilities and hits on you as a tank, you can trigger this effect almost all the time out of cooldown, and this means that you can hit substantially high damages to any other melee player in front of you. And due to the fact that the attack is extremely quick and there is no charge time, I would say that this is also still a good, inner way for the tanks, regardless of what I just said, that they have to be tanky. I think you can spare one spot and just take the Exquisite Scenery. Then we go for the last of the golden ones, which is Echoes of Oblivion. This is the main inner way for all the bamboo users. It's, of course, bamboo users are two, which are the dual blades and the rope dart. But this one specifically is for the dual blades, because as we can see, Infernal Twin Blades, a normal light attack will apply blah blah blah, and so on and so on. So this is mainly for the Twin Blades. Now, to be straight honest with you guys, if you play dual blades and your idea is to kill people and you're going to chase people, this is like a must-have thing. You just cannot skip this one. If you are using the dual blades as a secondary, just for the ultimate, like I said before, for the Strategic Sword, and you just want to capitalize on the bonuses of the ultimate, then you can completely forget about this inner way and slot something more useful. But if your dual blades are the main weapon, the main hand weapon, then definitely this one is a must-have. All right, so we go down to the purple ones. I already have two up there, so we will speak about the neutral ones again. The first one is Fury Harvest. This is, in my opinion, probably one of the best inner ways of the purple section, regardless if it's class-based or neutral, simply because Fury Harvest would give you a lot of vitality, and vitality in this game means mystic skills. And mystic skills on high levels mean a lot of damage, a lot of bonuses, and crazy, crazy other effects. So having this on tier 5 or tier 6 is really good. It would give you, as you can see, defense and physical resistance. And on tier 6, it would also give you 30% of the vitality that you just used in the next 5 seconds. And of course, there is a cap, but still, there is probably 1 or 2 abilities that would go over that cap. So in my opinion, Fury Harvest, pretty much mandatory for almost all the builds. If I have to choose, I would probably slot it on any build, unless I'm playing something that really doesn't need any vitality, something like probably Nameless Sword. I don't see that much of a vitality need there. But in general, for all the rest, it's pretty much a really, really good pick. Then we go to the other neutral ones. We have the Evasive Charge. This one, specifically speaking about melees, is probably one of the best ones as well, because it would give you a lot of HP and endurance recovery on a perfect dodge. And of course, you would get precision rate, which is not that great in a high level. And then, of course, physical damage reduction on tier 5 breakthrough. Now, this one is, like I said, a bit situational. If you play ranged, if you play a healer or a tank, you really don't look at that many dodges. You really don't think that this would be beneficial for you. But if you play something like, I would say, Dual Blades or Heaven Quicken Spear, and you are chasing targets and probably you are dodging a lot, then maybe you should definitely give it a try, since there would be so many AoEs happening around that most likely you would proc the effect almost all the time. And of course, additionally, it would also recover a little bit of HP. So not really sure if it's a mandatory, but I would probably give it a try if I have the chance and if we have an open slot. Then we have for the next one, which is Invigorated Warrior. This one on paper looks really nice, but it's probably one of the worst inner ways, simply because those effects would maybe never get applied. You would get increased damage and healing by 5%, but the effect is disabled for 5 seconds after being hit. Now imagine in a 30v30 you not getting hit. This is not gonna happen. So just quickly, the answer to this one is no. Then we go to the next one, which is Bitter Seasons. In short, when you hit people, you apply poison. Of course, 10% chance, not 100, but you apply poison, and this poison will reduce the physical defense of the target, and of course this stacks. Now if we add up the stacks, that's around 3%. Of course, with breakthroughs it would go a bit higher, and then on the third breakthrough, when you are getting attacked, you would apply the poison regardless if you hit or not hit the target. Of course, there is again a chance. Now, ideally speaking here, probably if you are a tank and you really want to help your teammates in a way to deal more damage, it could make some sense to use this one as long as you have at least tier 3 breakthrough, because then you would have some bonuses like physical damage, and then increased the chance to 15% instead of 10. And also here at tier 6, which probably would be hard to get that quick, at 5 stacks the poison also reduces the target's physical resistance by 10. So if you are a tank, let's assume that you are getting hit from all the places around you, then maybe you would apply on quite a lot of people this poison effect. But again, the question would be, do you have a spare inner way? This is definitely not a rank 1 inner way to use for a tank, but if you feel like you have an empty slot, maybe you can take this one. And then we have 2 others, which are Vital Leech and Divine Roulette. Vital Leech on paper, again, same like Invigorated Warrior, looks really nice, and it's, you know, attractive, because it would give you casting an exhaustion execution skill, basically the execute, would restore HP equal to 8% of the damage dealt. Now this is not really good, but if we look through all the breakthroughs and we go to tier 6, we would see that attacking exhausted targets with any skill other than the execution would restore 30% of the damage dealt. Now, I don't know if you've been playing Wars or you've been watching Wars, but you would see so many people executable in wars, it's insane. So you would naturally think, okay, if everyone, or let's say 50% of the people are executable, I would be gaining so much HP back. But to be fair, it's not really the case, and probably that's a really big bait, so I would definitely try to avoid Vital Leech. Maybe it has its own niche ways to be used in certain cases, but in general, I really don't see it being useful at all. Then we go to the next one, which is Divine Roulette. It's looking similar to the one here, the Seasonal Edge, because upon a successful deflection this time, not changing your weapons, but just a deflection, gain one of the following effects. Now this one is not bad because with, like I said, the amount of attacks that are happening in a war, the deflection is not a problem. Like you would get a lot of deflects, right? So if you do this, if you have this, you would get also quite an interesting bonuses like maximum physical attack increase. Each successful deflection would recover a little bit of chi. After a successful deflection, reduces the damage taken within 5 seconds by 10%, which is nice. Then you have reduced the cooldowns by 20%. I mean, this is the effect basically to proc more often. Then you have physical penetration. And then at the end, of course, after a successful deflection, there is a 10% chance to gain any 2 bonuses. And if the deflect skill is a red skill, I mean, this is like two situational, the chance to gain 2 bonuses increased to 30%. But basically, those are the bonuses. Increase the next skill damage by 10%, guaranteed to be crit, guaranteed to be affinity hit. Now, to be fair, I don't see this one to be really useful, because eventually you would have high crit, you would have high affinity if you know how to slot your gear. But if you feel like you need this and you have an extra slot, maybe it's not a bad thing. After all, you know, getting the chi bonus, I mean the chi back on deflection, and also getting less damage for the next 5 seconds is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing for sure. But yeah, that's basically it. Okay, so now we went through the through the neutral ones. We go over to the ones that are related to the builds. Again, starting with the Star Reacher, which is one of the inner ways for the Fan and Umbrella players. In my opinion, this one is a must-have, not only because it would give you extreme amounts of damage when you knock up someone, and you should be doing that pretty often, but because also, if you reach tier 6, you would get a really nice sustain. Yes, I know you would have healers, but sometimes, and especially in our case, I'm playing Fan and Umbrella into the jungle, so we have those skirmishes with other people, we have those skirmishes with other groups. Having this a little bit of sustain is definitely a good thing. Plus, you have the physical attack, and physical penetration as bonuses on 2 and 5 breakthroughs. So this one is definitely my choice to go when it comes to Fan and Umbrella. The second one, which is Flying Grounds, as you can see, I'm not using it in my war setup. It's not because it's a bad inner way, but it's just an inner way more looking into the 1v1s. So in this one, you would get more charges to your knockup, basically, and you would get, of course, precision rate and silkbind penetration, which are really nice. But again, in a mass fight, you kind of want to get more damage. So as you can see, I'm pretty much stacked on damage and vitality here. If you really want to have it, then go for it. But I pretty much don't have too much of a use. I tried in a couple of matches, but it was nothing special. And then the last one, which is here, and I don't even have a single point invested into it, is the Thunderous Bloom. Moving distance exceeding 15 meters within 3 seconds would gain you stacks, blah, 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 blah. Basically, moving and, you know, getting damage bonus would be beneficial for your damage, but at the same time, in this PvP game mode, you don't really move that much all the time. Like you move, you go to the objective, then you start shooting like a tower, and you are the tower, by the way, and then, you know, you move to the next objective. So there is not much moving, plus the bonuses are not that great. Then we go to the next one, which in line is the ones for the tank, and probably one of the best inner ways overall is Trap Beast. Now, why would this one be one of the best inner ways? And I'm talking about all the different builds. It's simply because taking damage while HP is below 30% would trigger Concerned Beast, generating a shield that absorbs 40% of your max HP. This effect has 4 seconds and can trigger once every 300 seconds. And now you're thinking, wait, this is 5 minutes of cooldown. Why would I really want to have this one, right? But then we look into the breakthroughs and we can see that now the shield is 40%. Then the HP is increased. I mean, overall for your character. When the shield is present, increase the healing received and any effect of medicine, meaning potions. When we have the fourth breakthrough, the cooldown is now 180 seconds, so down from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. And then we have physical resistance, which is of course defensive. And of course, if we have tier 6, if the shield is destroyed before expiry, reduce the cooldown by 120 seconds. So this means that if you have tier 6, by this one, it's 3 minutes. But if they break your shield, regardless if you die or not, it would reduce another 120 seconds, meaning that you're gonna get the shield again in 1 minute time. Now, in my opinion, if you are a healer, if you are a tank, or even a DPS that is getting quite a lot of focus from the enemies, this is a must-have inner way, regardless that it's a tank inner way. Like, you don't care that it's a tank inner way, you just want the bonus. So in my opinion, this one is extremely good. Then we go to the next ones. Art of Resistance. Increase the duration of your own shield and bonuses effects by 4%. And then with the different breakthroughs, you can get to, I believe it was 6 seconds instead of 4. Yeah, 6 seconds in total. And so on. In my opinion, this one is good, but not good enough. And the reason for that is you don't want to use that in anything else than a tank. And if you are a tank, believe me, your shield will be gone in no longer than 1 second in the middle of the fight. You would be getting a lot of heals, so you would be alive, but your shields will be gone consistently. So this one is a bit of a question, like, do you really want to have it? In my opinion, I would not, but it's up to you. Then we go to the next one, which is Rock Solid. This one is more towards not the Maw Blade, because the shields are coming from the Maw Blade. This one is from the Stormbreaker Spear. And we are talking about the Storm Roar. So increase the damage reduction of Storm Roar by 20% after taunting a boss, and by 5% after tanking a non-boss. Now here, I'm not entirely sure if this works in PvP or PvE, because the way that it's written is really complicated and not that great. I'm not a tank myself, I didn't really play tank, so I couldn't justify this information, but I would assume that it will reduce your damage taken by 5% when you use the Q ability of the Stormbreaker Spear. And then of course, while the damage reduction is active, reduce all damage dealt by 10%, but you don't really care because you're a tank, so you don't want to do damage. With the breakthroughs, the cooldown would go lower, you would get more HP, then you would get more physical reduction. Of course, you are a tank, so that's basically what you are there for. And then of course, you have increased damage to taunted units, but again, we don't really care about that. And then the last breakthrough, which is definitely unnecessary. While the Thunder Roar damage reduction is active, hitting a target recovers HP based on your battle wheels. 2% for battle wheel token. Total of, they have 5, so that's like 10% HP. I wouldn't say that it's necessary. So tier 6 of this one is definitely not needed if you are going to use it. Like I said earlier, you can go for, let's say this one maybe. Sorry, not this one. Where did it go? This one for parrying and getting reduction of damage. You can go for Bitter Seasons to reduce the enemy's defenses, and then you can use your Exquisite Scenery and you would have 1 left. But again, this is just theory crafting. All right, then we go to the next one. The next in line are the Nameless Inner Ways. Mountain Smite. Nameless Spear Martial Arts skill Mountain Sweep grants Endless Gale effect, increasing the endurance cost reduction to 20% for 5 seconds. Now this one, I read it the whole thing just so you can understand. The idea of the Nameless Spear in this game mode is just to give endurance to the Nameless Sword, so he can spam heavy attacks non-stop with the waves. And then when you have your ultimate, to support your clump or to support your group with your ultimate. That's basically the Nameless Spear. So everything that is related to endurance is good, because this is equal to damage on your other side with the Nameless Sword. So this one, there is not much to read about it. Like, this one is reducing your, endurance and giving you more endurance. Definitely go for it. Then we have the Wildfire Spark, which also refunds 3.5% of the endurance consumed. It's not that high, but at the end I think it gets to 7% or something like this. There it is. Like, increase the amount of endurance refunded to 7%, and then here gain 1 stack of Spark with endurance charges by 10. Blah 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 blah. Technically another way to recover some endurance. Not sure if it's needed, but of course if you have again an open slot, maybe you can go for it. And then we have the Battle Anthem. Increase charge skills damage against all bosses by 10%. Now don't get me wrong, we have a lot of really good players, but nobody from them is a boss. So I don't think that this works on people. And then of course all enemies, increase charge skills to all enemies by 10%. This is definitely good, including players with less than 60% endurance. I said that there is a lot of people without chi, but I'm not sure if everyone is, let's say, under 60% endurance. Then you have affinity rate, which is something really nice for your damage. When a charge skill, I don't know why I'm reading critical. Probably because of this. Is critical or affinity. If the target is a player, reduces their endurance by 10. If the target is a boss, reduce blah 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 blah. So this is one way to reduce their endurance, and so on with other bonuses. Now again, I would say that it could be used in different scenarios, because basically it gives you a bit of damage extra. But if you feel like there is another inner way that you want to use, one other that I can give you as an example in a bit would be this one here with the breaking point, and I will explain why. But yeah, if you feel like you want to go for this one, you can definitely do so. Then we have the ones for the Heavenquaker Spear, which I'm not really familiar with, because this is something that really beats me almost every time, but at the same time I don't really know all of their inner ways. So we have the Wolf Chaser's art for the 9-bent Spirit Star. Okay, I don't need to read the whole thing. But basically, you can decide for yourself which of those are necessary. As I said, the Heavenquaker Spear and the Strategic Sword are not that common when it comes to the guild. I mean, the guild wars in the 30v30, not because they're bad weapons, but mostly because they're more focused towards the 1v1s. Of course, you want to have them. You want to have a couple because their ultimates are quite useful for the fights. But in general, they are mostly used for the duels that are fighting at the 20-minute mark for the mid-time performance. And then we go to the next one, which is the healer, and then we have the bamboo cut. So the healer one, Restorating Blossom, dealing critical heals, applies a stack of nurturing for 3 seconds, increasing healing received by 2%, stacking up to 3 times, and then of course those percentages are going higher. Which is definitely better than new. Why I'm clicking on the 2nd and the 5th breakthrough? Because those are extremely important. Increasing the minimum silk bind attack would mean increasing the minimum healing that you do, which is really good for a healer. And then increasing the critical healing bonus by 4% is also something really important, because heals as well as damage can crit, which means you would apply even higher heal. This one, together with Royal Remedy, are most likely the 2 best inner ways for a healer, and if you don't have those, you are pretty much trolling your teammates. The other 2 that I would run if I was a healer would be probably the Trapped Beast for survivability, and maybe the Fury Harvest for more vitality, even though that healers are gaining quite a lot of vitality, but I would still run this one for the double defense, plus the initial impact on having Golden Body and Ghostly Steps non-stop. The other 2, which are Esoteric Revival, this one is pure joke, by the way. The Revival is extremely weak. When you get revived, you are pretty much 1 hit away from death again. And even with the bonuses that are in the breakthrough, you would not get that much HP. So this one is pretty much joke. I would really not run it at all on a healer. And then we have the Mending Loom, which is the skill of the umbrella. It's not a bad one, like it gives a bit of additional heal, but mainly the healing weapon is the fan, guys. So I would just focus on my fan skills and I would not really go for this one. Of course, if you want to, go for it, but in my personal opinion, this one is not really worth it. And then for the last three, as I said, I would not go over the blue ones because they're quite useless. But for the last three, Vendetta, this is one of the best inner ways for Bamboo Cut when it comes to 1v1. This is the so-called Rats build, which is extremely powerful in a 1v1. But when it comes to 30v30, this one kind of loses its grip. I wouldn't say that it's completely useless, but I didn't see that many people running with the rope dart in the Guild Wars. Mostly people prefer to go for something with utility, and yeah, the rope dart at the moment is not in a good spot when it comes to Guild Wars, so I would completely ignore Vendetta. And then we have Breaking Point. This is really good passive, not only for Dual Blades, not only for Bamboo Cut, but also for any other DPS. And the reason is when people are executable, basically if they don't have chi, in short, you would deal more damage because you would basically render their physical penetration, and you would do extremely high damages, especially if you go with like a higher tier of breakthrough. Now, I mean, it's a bit crazy, especially that's why I said that Nameless Sword probably can run this one instead of the last one or something else. But ideally, this one can give you a lot of damage, especially on targets that are executable. So have in mind, if you have a lot of people running this, then your idea probably is not to execute people as soon as you see the executing icon in the middle of your screen. Maybe wait for a couple of seconds so everyone can do the extra damage and then only use it in case you want to exit like a clump, or in case you just want to finish a target that is already 1 HP. But yeah, this one is really good for damage, and definitely you should try it as well to see how it works for you. And then the last one is the Riptide Reflex. Now, even for a 1v1, I didn't really find use for this specific inner way. I've been playing Dual Blades and Rope Dart at the start of the game. I changed then to Umbrella and Fan. But this one, I'm not really sure if it has any kind of use. In my opinion, it's just a complete useless inner way. But of course, probably there would be someone to prove me wrong by showing me, how it can be useful and so on. The passives on the 2 and the 5th breakthrough is physical attack, which is not bad, and then you have physical penetration. But all in all the other things are pretty junky. So I would definitely say that you should probably skip this one. Alright guys, so that's basically it for the inner ways. I hope that you enjoyed. Probably I've raised a couple of questions, but of course, if you have them, please let me know in the comments. I will try to put some more information in the next videos, in which we will be speaking about the importance of the different weapons and how you can combine them, the different team strategies with which you can come up against your opponents, and of course the different objectives on the maps, because it's just one. But the objectives are quite a lot and they're happening on different timers. So yeah, definitely something interesting to check out. So that's why maybe you should also consider following and subscribing to the channel. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you on the next one.